All right, welcome in everyone to the deep dive. We're diving into a pretty fascinating area today. It's the global market for psoriatic arthritis therapeutics. We've got this recent market report that just came out,
Yep.
and it's not just about the numbers. We want to get to what these numbers actually mean and what's going on in this space.
Yeah. This report gives us a great snapshot of where things stand today and, even more interestingly, where they might be headed. It projects that by 2025, we're looking at a global market worth about 12.62 billion US dollars. That's a huge number, and it really highlights how important these treatments are. But what does that number actually mean for, the people who need these treatments, for patients? Does it mean a lot of research is happening or that there's a really big need?
That's a great point. It definitely suggests that there's a lot of effort and investment going into finding solutions, and it shows that this condition really has a big impact on people's lives. But it doesn't stop there. The report goes on to say that the market is expected to grow even more, reaching 26.66 billion US dollars by 2033. That's more than double in size. That's a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 9.8%. A growth rate like that shows that this is a really dynamic area with a lot of potential. What kind of changes would lead to such rapid growth?
A 9.8% CAGR means that things aren't just growing, they're accelerating. This kind of growth could be because more people are getting diagnosed, new and better treatments are coming out, or maybe treatment is becoming available to more people. What we want to do today is take this big, complex report and boil it down to the most important points for you, our listeners. We want you to understand where this market is now and where it's going without getting bogged down in all the details. Think of this as your shortcut to becoming an expert on this topic.
Exactly. The full report goes deep into all kinds of stuff, like the overall market size, how it's growing in different parts of the world, different types of drugs that are being used, how they are given, who's selling them, the big players in the market, and what's driving all this growth, plus any hurdles they might face. It's really thorough.
So where do we start? Maybe one of the most interesting parts of the report is how it breaks down the market by region. This tells us where the most demand is and where things are changing the fastest.
Right, let's look at the different regions then. We should start with the big one, North America. The report says that in 2025, North America is projected to be the biggest market, holding over 40% of the global share. That's a big chunk, coming in at 4.67 billion US dollars. And it's expected to keep growing at a steady rate of 8.2% per year until 2033.
What's especially interesting is when you zoom in on the U.S. within North America. The United States is the main driver there, with a market size of $3.68 billion in 2025 and a slightly lower but still strong CAGR of 8%. This is probably tied to the fact that a lot of people in the U.S. are living with psoriatic arthritis.
For sure. And it's not just the US. Canada is another significant market, estimated at 560.33 million US dollars in 2025, growing at 9% per year. Then there's Mexico at 424.92 million, growing at 8.7%. North America is so strong because of a few things. The report highlights the fact that biological therapies are being used a lot in this region, and there's a lot of money being poured into research and development by pharmaceutical companies based there, all focusing on this condition. This high adoption rate could be due to better insurance coverage for these newer treatments in North America compared to other regions.
Yeah, that's a really important point about biological therapies. They tend to be pricier, but they can also be more effective. The report actually had a statistic from Amgen estimating that almost 600,000 Americans are affected by psoriatic arthritis. When you think about how many people need treatment, it really helps understand why the market is so big.
Absolutely. Now let's jump over to Europe, the second largest market. In 2025, Europe is predicted to have over 30% of the global market share, with a total value of 3.66 billion US dollars and a CGR of 8.8% through 2033. Europe is interesting because it has some well-established markets, but also some that are growing really quickly. What seems to be consistent across Europe is that.
Yeah. When we look at specific countries, the UK stands out with a projected market size of 614.85 million US dollars in 2025 and a really solid 9.6% CAGR. Germany is not far behind at 724.64 million, growing 9% annually. And then we've got France at 336.7 million with a KGR of 8%. Italy at 314.74 million at 8.2%, Russia at 567.27 million and 7.8%, and Spain at 300.1 million with a 7.9% CAGR. What's interesting is that even the smaller markets in Europe are showing some promising growth. Sweden is predicted to reach 113.45 million US dollars in 2025 with a KGR of 8.9%. Denmark's at 76.86 million, growing at 8.6%. Switzerland's at 54.9 million with an 8.5% CAGR. Even Luxembourg, really tiny country, is at 43.92 million with a CAGR of 9.1%. That's higher than a lot of bigger countries. And then the rest of Europe combined is at 512.37 million, growing at 7.5% per year. It's surprising to see Luxembourg with such a high growth rate. What could be driving that in such a small country?
That's a really good question. It could be a combination of things like their healthcare policies, maybe they have specialized clinics, or maybe the condition is just more common there. The report doesn't dive into that level of detail for every smaller market, but it definitely makes you wonder. So, what are the big factors driving Europe's overall success in this market?
The report points to a few key things. Awareness and diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis are increasing in lots of European countries, which naturally means more people need treatment. Plus, there's a lot of work happening in Europe to develop and provide new advanced medicines. And of course, increased healthcare spending and mostly favorable reimbursement policies in many European countries play a big part in making sure people can actually access these treatments.
So, North America and Europe are the leaders right now, but where are we seeing the biggest changes happening for the future?
That would have to be the Asia-Pacific region. It's currently sitting at around 23% of the global market share, with a size of $3.03 billion in 2025. But it's predicted CAGR is a massive 12.6% between 2025 and 2033. That's nearly a 13% growth rate per year. What could be happening to drive such fast growth in the Asia-Pacific region?
Yeah, exactly. Let's take a closer look at the big players in APAC to figure out where this growth is coming from.
China is definitely leading the charge in APAC, with a projected market size of $1.27 billion in 2025 and a strong 12.1% CAGR. India is another major growth driver, expected to reach $302.8 million in 2025 and boasting an even higher CAGR of 14.5%. Japan is another significant market at $417.97 million, growing at 11.1% per year, followed by South Korea at $363.46 million and 11.7%, and Australia at $157.5 million, growing at 11.9%. Then we also have some smaller but notable markets like Singapore, estimated to be worth $60.58 million in 2025 and growing at a rate of 12.9% annually. Taiwan is at $118.12 million with a 12.4% CAGR, and the rest of the Asia-Pacific region combined is $136.3 million, growing at 12.4%.
Wow. So many different places growing so quickly. It makes you wonder what's behind all this momentum in Asia Pacific.
Yeah, it's really impressive. What's fueling all this growth? A few things, really. The report highlights growing awareness of psoriatic arthritis across the region, so more people are getting diagnosed and seeking treatment. On top of that, healthcare infrastructure is rapidly improving in many APAC countries, making diagnosis and treatment much easier. And, really importantly, access to medication is increasing in developing nations in the region, like China and India. Plus, Japan has a really well-established pharmaceutical industry, and the adoption of biologic medications has been very fast in places like Australia and New Zealand, which are also contributing to this growth.
So even though North America and Europe are bigger right now, Asia-Pacific is the region to watch for the future. What about the other parts of the world?
South America represents over 5% of the global market. It's estimated to be worth $479.56 million in 2025, with a projected CAGR of 10.5% through 2033. Brazil is the biggest market in South America, expected to reach $205.25 million in 2025 and growing at 11.1% per year. Then we have Argentina at $80.57 million and 11.4%, Colombia at $42.68 million and 10.3%, Peru at $39.32 million and 10.7%, and Chile at $34.53 million with a TGR of 10.8%. The rest of South America combined is at $77.21 million, growing at 9.6% per year.
What's driving the growth in South America?
Well, the report says that the number of people getting psoriatic arthritis in the region is going up. So more people are being diagnosed, which of course increases the need for treatments. There's also growing awareness of the condition, both among the general public and healthcare professionals. And access to healthcare services in general is improving, so it's easier for people to get the treatment they need. Plus, new and more effective therapies are becoming more available, giving doctors more options to manage the condition.
What about the Middle East?
The Middle East represents about 2% of the global market, with a size of $504.8 million in 2025 and a projected CGR of 11.1%. Saudi Arabia is the biggest market there at $177.69 million, growing at 11.4% annually. Then we have the UAE at $103.99 million with a CAGR of 11.6%. Turkey and Qatar are both at $40.38 million, but Turkey's growing slightly faster at 11.7% compared to Qatar's 10.6%. Egypt's at $30.29 million with a TGR of 10.9%, and the rest of the Middle East combined comes in at $112.07 million with a growth rate of 10.3% per year. What are the key things that are driving this growth in the Middle East? Well, one of the main factors is that countries in the region are spending more on healthcare. This means they can invest more in advanced treatments and make them more available to people. The healthcare infrastructure is also getting better, which means improved diagnosis and treatment for conditions like psoriatic arthritis. And just like in other regions, awareness of the condition is increasing among both the public and medical professionals, leading to more diagnoses and therefore more people needing treatment. The growing demand for more advanced medications, like biologics, which are known to be more effective in many cases, is also a big factor in the market growth.
And lastly, let's turn to Africa.
Africa currently holds around 1% of the global market share at $277.64 million in 2025 and has a projected CAGR of 10.1%. South Africa is the biggest market there at $97.73 million with an 11% CAGR. The rest of Africa combined represents $157.7 million, growing at a rate of 9.3% annually, and Nigeria is at $22.21 million with a CAGR of 10.3%.
What's the situation in Africa?
Similar to other regions, the number of people with psoriatic arthritis in Africa is rising, probably because people are living longer and maybe because there's an increase in related conditions. What's encouraging is that public awareness of the condition is growing, and healthcare professionals are more aware of it too, which means more people are getting diagnosed accurately and earlier. As healthcare infrastructure continues to improve, access to newer, more effective treatments is also increasing, which helps to drive the market growth.
That regional breakdown was incredibly insightful, really shows how different things are around the world. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Instead of focusing on where these treatments are being used, let's talk about the treatments themselves. How does the market break down in terms of the different types of medication?
Yeah, the report does a good job of breaking things down by drug class outlook, route of administration outlook, which is basically how the drugs are given, and distribution channel outlook, which looks at how patients get their hands on these medications. Each of these gives us a different piece of the puzzle.
Let's start with the drug class outlook. What are the main types of drugs being used to treat psoriatic arthritis?
The report says that TNF inhibitors are likely to remain the most common type of drug used in the psoriatic arthritis therapeutics market. TNF is a protein that causes inflammation in psoriatic arthritis, so TNF inhibitors work by blocking its action. They're expected to stay on top because they generally work well, there aren't that many other options in some cases, and they tend to be more expensive than older medications. This segment is also predicted to be driven by the increasing use of biosimilar medications in developed countries, which are essentially more affordable versions of the original biologic drugs, and by the growing demand in emerging regions.
That makes sense. TNF inhibitors have been an important part of treating inflammatory diseases for a while now. What about other types of drugs?
Interestingly, the report identifies interleukin inhibitors as the fastest growing segment of the market. Interleukins are another type of protein involved in inflammation, and it seems that these inhibitors are proving to be really effective in managing the different symptoms of psoriatic arthritis, including joint pain, swelling, stiffness, and the skin problems associated with psoriasis. The speed of this growth is pretty impressive too. It makes you think that doctors are seeing real benefits with these drugs. Maybe they work better for some people or have fewer side effects than older treatments. And in some cases, they can even help prevent damage to the joints, which is a huge plus for patients.
The fact that interleukin inhibitors are growing so quickly suggests a significant shift in how this condition is being treated. Are there any other major drug classes we should know about?
Yeah, the report also mentions PDE4 inhibitors. PDE4 is an enzyme that's involved in inflammation. These inhibitors work by blocking the activity of this enzyme. And then the report also includes a general category of others, which would cover things like traditional DMARDs, which stands for disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, and corticosteroids.
What's the deal with PDE4 inhibitors? Are they used for more mild cases or maybe just for certain symptoms?
That's a great question. PDE4 inhibitors are often used for people who have both the joint and skin symptoms of psoriatic arthritis, and they can be taken as a pill, which is convenient for some people. Okay, so we've talked about the different types of drugs. Let's move on to how they're actually given to patients, the route of administration. The report says that the parenteral segment, which basically means injectable medications, currently has the biggest share of the market. So when we say parenteral, we're talking about injections, which deliver the medication directly into the bloodstream for a quicker effect. This is the typical route for the biologic medications we've been talking about, and the fact that many of these are expensive contributes to the large market share of this segment. The increasing use of these newer treatments is also boosting this segment's growth.
That makes sense, especially for the biologics that need to be given by injection. But are there other ways these medications are being given to patients?
Absolutely. The report points out that the oral segment, meaning medications taken by mouth, is growing really fast in the psoriatic arthritis therapeutics market. Oral medications are much easier to take and don't involve needles, so they're naturally more popular with many patients. And there are more and more oral medications becoming available for psoriatic arthritis, which is helping this segment grow. The report also mentions topical medications. Topical treatments like creams and ointments are mainly used for the skin symptoms of psoriasis, which often goes hand in hand with psoriatic arthritis.
Convenience is so important for people managing a long-term condition like this, so it's great to see that oral treatments are becoming more common. Now, lastly, let's look at how these treatments actually reach patients. We're talking about the distribution channel outlook.
So, the report says that hospital pharmacies are currently the main way these medications are distributed. This is likely because hospitals have healthcare professionals who can oversee the dispensing of these medications, which can be pretty complex. Plus, hospitals often deal with more severe cases of psoriatic arthritis that need strong medications, and they have the resources to handle these treatments.
That makes sense, especially for the more specialized biologic therapies that might need careful handling and monitoring. But are there other ways people are getting these medications?
Yes, the report highlights the rapid growth of online pharmacies. This is a big deal because it means more convenient access to medications for many people, especially those who live in areas with limited pharmacy options or have trouble getting around. The report also mentions retail pharmacies, but they're not growing as quickly as online pharmacies.
The rise of online pharmacies is something we're seeing across many areas of healthcare, so it's not surprising that it's playing a significant role here too. It's really making things easier for a lot of patients. So now that we've covered the regional breakdown and the different segments of the market, let's dive into the underlying forces that are shaping this whole landscape, the key market dynamics.
These dynamics are what help us understand not only what's happening, but why it's happening. The report identifies a number of key market drivers, restraints, and trends.
Let's start with the drivers. What are the main forces that are pushing this market forward and leading to all that impressive growth?
Well, the biggest driver is the simple fact that more people around the world are getting psoriatic arthritis. As more people are diagnosed, the demand for effective treatment naturally increases. Secondly, awareness and diagnosis of the condition are also increasing. This means more people are being diagnosed correctly and earlier, which again drives the demand for therapies. And lastly, advancements in treatment options are a huge driver. New and more effective treatments are being developed, including the biologics and targeted therapies we talked about earlier, and this is a big part of why the market is growing.
Those all make perfect sense. So on the other side of the coin, what are the restraints that might be holding back this market's growth?
The report points to the high cost of biologic treatments as a major roadblock. These newer therapies can be very expensive, which limits access for some patients and can be tough on healthcare systems and insurance companies. The potential side effects and adverse reactions of some medications are also a concern. They require careful monitoring and might not be suitable for everyone. Besides just limiting who can get treatment, how does this cost issue affect what research gets done or the development of new treatment options?
That's a really good point. The high cost of biologics is a big reason why there's so much interest in developing more affordable alternatives, like biosimilars. It also encourages research into new treatments that might be less expensive or have fewer side effects. Now, let's look at the broader market trends that are shaping the future of this field.
The report highlights two major trends. The first is that globally, countries are spending more and more on healthcare. This means they have more money to invest in treatments for chronic conditions like psoriatic arthritis. The second big trend is the increasing focus on personalized medicine. This means tailoring treatment to each individual patient based on their specific genes, how their disease presents, and other personal factors. This could lead to much more effective treatments in the future, with fewer side effects for people like you who are managing this condition.
Personalized medicine is a really exciting area with a lot of potential for changing how we treat complex diseases. Now, the last thing the report touches on is the competitive landscape. Who are the main players in this market, and what are they doing to get ahead?
The report makes it clear that the Psoriatic Arthritis Therapeutics Market is really competitive. There are tons of pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies all working to develop and market treatments for this condition. They're investing a lot of money in research and development to come up with new and innovative therapies and gain an edge over the competition. And because there are so many different types of treatments available, including biologics, traditional DRNs, and other medications, the competition is coming from different angles. It must be a pretty intense environment for these companies.
So, what are these companies doing to stay ahead of the game?
The report mentions that these companies are often forming alliances, merging, or even buying out other companies. These are common strategies to improve their position in the market, expand what they offer, and get access to new technology. All of this collaboration is aimed at speeding up research, development, and the introduction of new treatments to the market. That makes a lot of sense. So much is happening in this field, it makes sense to team up sometimes.
The report actually gives some specific examples of this kind of activity, which makes it much more real.
Yeah, it mentions that in September 2023, Wellman Health teamed up with Versus Arthritis, a nonprofit organization that helps people with arthritis, to launch their Pathway platform. This platform is designed to give people living with psoriatic arthritis and other types of arthritis access to resources and support, which could ultimately influence treatment decisions and market share.
That's a great example of how companies are thinking beyond just the drug itself and trying to improve the overall experience for patients and their support network. What was the other example the report highlighted?
The other one was about Biocon Biologics. They're working with Johnson & Johnson and Janssen Biotech Inc. to launch their medication called BMAB 1200, which is being proposed as a biosimilar to an existing biologic drug called Stelara. This is expected to happen in February 2024. When a biosimilar version of a popular drug becomes available, it can shake things up in the market because it offers a more affordable alternative, which might make treatment accessible to more people and could lead to lower prices.
So just to be clear, biosimilars are basically more affordable versions of the original biologic drugs, which could significantly improve access to these medications, right?
Exactly. Biosimilars could be a game changer for making these advanced treatments more affordable for more people in healthcare systems. Those examples really show how fast-paced and competitive this market is. So to wrap things up, what are the main takeaways from our deep dive into this report on the Psoriatic Arthritis Therapeutics Market? The report paints a clear picture of a strong and growing market, which is predicted to more than double in size between 2025 and 2033. This impressive growth is being fueled by the increasing number of people affected by psoriatic arthritis, greater awareness of the condition leading to earlier diagnosis, and the constant development and availability of more effective treatment options.
And although North America is the biggest market right now, it looks like the Asia-Pacific region is set to grow the fastest in the coming years, which is definitely something to watch.
Absolutely. We also explored the different types of drugs used in the market, with TNF inhibitors currently in the lead, but interleukin inhibitors showing the most rapid growth. When it comes to how these drugs are given, injections are most common now, but oral treatments are catching up because they're much more convenient. Hospital pharmacies are still the main source for these medications, but online pharmacies are becoming increasingly important for patient access.
And lastly, even though there are strong drivers for growth and exciting new developments happening, the high cost of biologic treatments is still a big challenge that needs to be tackled to make sure everyone who needs these treatments can get them.
That's a great point. And it leads to an important question for you, our listeners. Thinking about all these advancements in treatment and the regional differences we discussed, how do you think access to these vital therapies will change on a global scale over the next decade? What role will things like the growing use of biosimilars and the focus on personalized medicine play in shaping the future of this market? It's a complicated but really important issue to consider.
It certainly is. This is a market that's constantly evolving and has the potential to make a huge difference for millions of people living with psoriatic arthritis. We encourage you to take what you've learned today and maybe do some more research on your own into this dynamic area of healthcare. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.